Hello YouTube, this is karacakes. PGA Tour 2K23 has come out, and I've gotten a ton of questions about the mechanics of the game both on my Twitch stream. You can go see that at twitch.tv/karacakes. Link will be in the description. And over on Discord. People ask me, what are the best skills? What are the differences in the archetypes? And how different is 2K23 compared to the last game? So, with this video, we will start a tutorial series on some of the basics of the changes for PGA Tour 2K23. There won't be any fancy sound effects or graphics. Well, at least not anyways until I learn how to edit a video properly. But if you're here just for information on the game, I will give it to you. No thrills, frills, or strings attached. Well, just one string attached. Just subscribe, comment, leave a like or a dislike. Come join us on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/karacakes once more. Come on over, see if you like our vibe. We have a great time over there showing off a lot of cool content and skill at this game. Because let me tell you, my name, karacakes, pretty well known in these streets of PGA Tour 2K21. I was ranked 6th at the end of PGA Tour 2K21 on TGCTours.com. I started as just somebody who picked up the game in October, 2 months after it had been released. Found out about TGCTours and started to grind away like crazy, and eventually became a top player. During the first season, I won the tour championship, and in season 2 I had so many second places your eyes would bleed. There were a lot of choke jobs. I ended up only winning one tournament when everybody expected me to win like 5 or 10, but I played pretty consistently well throughout the season, so I'm pretty proud about that. I do a lot of experiments and testing of the game mechanics to get the best out of my game. This video will be on skills. We're going to talk about the very basics of the skills, as there's a lot of confusion on it. So let's get started. First, what are skills? Skills are a new addition to 2K23. As you can see, we're here on the main menu. If you don't know where to find it, we start by going into My Player. We go in, then we scroll over to the Golfer section, and Skills will appear in the first tab. There are 7 columns, and each one unlocks after 4 more skill points have an investment. So, in this case, with 0 skill points investment, the first tree is automatically unlocked. The second tree will unlock after 4 skills invested. The third tree will activate after 8 skills invested, and so on and so forth until we've invested 24 points and have the entire tree at our mercy. They alternate between a negative event, such as miss 3 fairways in regulation, and a positive event, such as hit 3 fairways in regulation. And they deactivate, you know, on a positive for the negatives. And if it's a negative tree, or if it's a positive tree, then it will deactivate when there's a negative event. Generally, better skills are on the right of the tree as you go further and further along, especially the last row, as these skills will always be active as long as you fulfill the conditions that it says it will fulfill. We'll go into that later, but first, let's get really cooking with these skills. The goal is to get to the better skills that are easier to trigger and don't impact the game in invisible ways that are hard to remember unless you're willing to test. This mostly applies if you play on TGC Tour settings or settings without Pro Vision enabled, or the trajectory or the distance marker and all that. Because these become invisible without Pro Vision on. For example, we want to avoid attribute bonuses to shaping especially, as this will be the biggest impact in these invisible moments. This changes how much the yardage goes if you loft, deloft, fade, or draw if you activate a shaping boost. So those are a little dangerous. For example, my 6-iron normally goes 201 yards, and fully lofted, it will go 191. But if I get a boost in the middle of the round, then I have to realize that boost has been activated, which is in the top right of your screen. While you're playing the round, it'll be highlighted in yellow. And if you press the help button, it'll say which one has been activated. And if it's activated, I have to remember that that boost will make my club go, instead of 191 if I full loft, it will now go 185 if I fully loft it. You know, with the other attributes, this isn't so much a problem. At least with power, for example, if I get a power boost, I can see in the top right that the distance of my club has changed. So this isn't so much an invisible stat as you got to pay attention if it's active. With transition boost, it'll just make the window slightly larger to hit the power I want, which is mostly a positive thing. So we don't have to worry too much if we have a power boost, a transition boost. Same with attributes like lie range, putt weight, putt path, swing path, and timing. Then there are some dangerous, shall we say, attributes that are more hidden and tricky to figure out if you're a new player or somebody who hasn't heard about these new attributes or hasn't really gotten a chance to experiment with them. Maybe you are level 12, so you don't have a lot of skills invested yet, and that's why you clicked on this video. You want to learn what I should be putting points into. Those dangerous attributes are spin, roll, and bounce. You'll see, and flight. Flight is the other one. As you can see, for example, on this hybrid skill, normal shots receive a flight boost from the heavy rough. So let's go over the basics of how to start building your tree, as we'll talk about these special ones like flight, spin, and roll in the tree. Now, it can seem pretty daunting. We have a ton of rows and columns, right? We have 6 rows, 7 columns, 42 different skills, and you can level them up 3 times. We're going to look for the most impactful skills, avoid spending too many points into skills that don't have much benefit, and then we'll fill out the rest of our tree. Here's how I prioritize. I know I want everything on the passive tree because these are passive and positive benefits. I want everything except for maybe the hybrid, because I might not use a hybrid in my bag. If you do use a hybrid in your bag, you need to invest points in your hybrid skills. If you don't like any of the skills in a single tree, you can go back and put in points into an earlier tree. It'll all count towards unlocking the further ones. So if I find that in this third tree, I can't put any points into anything. None of them make sense. It's hard to activate and they won't help me. Well, I can go back to the second tree and put in the points until I unlock the fourth tree. All right, so let's start building. First, let's look at the first branch. I noticed that we need to activate a negative event. That's what I talked about earlier. Here, if we miss 3 fairways in regulation, we will get the boost. So if you find yourself off the fairway, then that's a boost you might take, right? The driver and wood ones trigger when you go off the fairway on your tee shot, and only deactivate if you do either a fairway or green in regulation. And as you get more levels, it'll be harder to deactivate, which is good. We want these bonuses, right? So obviously with the first tree, there isn't a lot we can do. We need to put 4 points in before we can move on. So it's not like that advice I told you earlier. We can't put, there's no other tree to put points in. So we need to find what is the best one. Some of the other ones activate, such as this, if we score bogeys. If you're a higher level player playing on TGC Tours and you generally shoot under par, these are not going to be easy to activate for you. So you generally want to avoid them. Now, most of them are pretty beneficial, like this one. The Arenologist. Flash shots receive a timing boost from the bunker. That would be useful, right? But it only activates if you have a poor swing timing. So it's kind of hard to activate these. Poor swing timing means not in the gray or white, but in the black tempo. So a black fast or a black very fast, a black slow, a black very slow. Especially on the lower difficulties, these can be a little harder to trigger. So going for poor swing timing ones, you better have like nothing else that you want, or else it's not worth getting. So I don't have hybrids in my bag, so I'm not going to put a point in a hybrid. Instead, I'm going to choose one of these two because these have a higher chance of activating compared to everyone else, and they don't have a gameplay impact that is hard to quantify. Lie range increasing for normal shots out of the lie rough, out of the heavy rough with your 3 wood is a pretty useful skill to have. So we'll put 3 points into that because it's probably the best out of this tree other than the hybrid one. But again, I'm not using a hybrid. And then with our last point, we'll put it into the Trailblazer, and that unlocks our next tier, right? But let's talk about this flight boost. You're kind of wondering, that seems kind of good, right? Flight into the headwind. It's not hard to activate, and it'll only deactivate every once in a while. So how come we don't want to use this? Well, it's not that you don't want to use it. You might want to. However, you need to keep in mind the hidden downsides of flight. Flight increases the distance of your club, so it's not so hidden in that regard. You'll be able to see exactly how much yardage your ball will go afterwards. The hard thing about it is flight also decreases the impact wind has on your club. This can be tricky to quantify in-game, and it's something you have to learn through feel and testing on your own to see exactly how much a flight boost will change how it plays in the wind. Generally, these flight boosts can be very useful if you're in the heavy rough where this will only activate and you're hitting into headwind. That means you're in a pretty bad state, right? This might give you that extra distance and negative impact on the wind to be able to cut through it and get further and closer to the green. Especially useful on par 5s, correct? So be careful when choosing to put points into flight, because it will change how your clubs play into the wind. But that can be very useful and beneficial as long as you pay attention to when it's activated. Now, if I do use a hybrid, I might want to put 3 points into that boost. That's a really nice boost. But pay attention. Be careful. Anyways, this is how we're going to treat every new column. We look at it, we see how easy it's activated, we see if the stat is beneficial, and then we choose to invest or we go back to the older ones. In the second tree, spin boosts start to appear. The hybrid has a spin boost. The pitch shot has a spin boost. Spin in the last game affected shot shaping, but they've created a whole new shot shaping stat called shaping to change how much distance is gained and lost when you loft and deloft, spin or loft or loft, deloft, fade, and draw. Now, spin just does what it says. Creates extra spin so the ball can stop more easily. The downside to spin is the opposite of flight. It makes the wind play more. Not that much more in my testing, but you do need to keep in mind, if you want these skills, you will need to remember that the wind may play a bit more. Be careful with it. I avoid driver. The shaping stat messes up things when I want to fade, draw, or deloft my driver. It'll change those values, so if I don't notice that the values have changed, I might take too much distance off my club, or not enough. The other ones I'm not too interested in. I'm just going to put points into the putter one because This is fairly easy to activate as long as you land close to the pin or on a recovery out of the rough or something. If you're right next to the pin, you'll get this very easily, and it'll just increase putt path, which is, you know, it's one of those, it's only positive if you have more of the skill. Then finally, we put in a point into rangefinder. Again, transition is a stat that isn't that impactful. It's only positive, really. So, considering I don't want the rest, we'll do it. We keep going as we go along the tree. We check what's good, what isn't, what can activate easily or not, and make decisions based on all those factors. The other stat I want to show that can be dangerous is the roll stat. That's the third of these hidden attributes that appear in skills and on the ball types that you choose. If you wish to buy balls or get them from unlocks from the clubhouse pass, or just doing rounds, you might get a random ball drop. This roll is an attribute that makes green speeds faster or slower. A roll boost in this instance on here, greenskeeper. Receive a roll boost on the green. This is dangerous because when activated, it increases the green speed. Now this can be good on very slow greens. If you don't like slow greens in general, you might want roll boost, but it'll change mid-round and you have to pay attention to that. Not only that, it'll increase the green speed by 5 if you have this boost active. 5. That's a lot. That means of 155 green is going to be 160. That means the ball will roll out more. It makes downhill putts harder. It will make approaches roll out more. Avoid increasing the roll unless you are playing on those very slow greens I mentioned. You want it a bit faster, or you can only play on very fast greens for some reason. All right. Finally, we get to the row I've been talking about. The final passive tree. These skills have a boost of 1 of the 3 depending on the level, and only when the condition is fulfilled. The driver one, as I'm highlighting here, take the wheel, says normal shots, so not a punch shot, which you can change your driver to a punch shot. Receives a transition, the window for hitting 100% or partial power if you have partial. A swing path, or, keyword is or, you only get one of these boosts off of the tee. That means it only is active when it's off the tee. That means if you want to take driver off the deck, you will not get this passive. So these boosts aren't as gameplay breaking as they seem, but they're useful. So I'm sorry, but it's pretty good. If you were thinking you could get more transition on your chips, for instance, sorry, that's not the case. It only says in the wedges normal shots. The only minor thing I would say is on the driver, or on most of these, you will go for level 3, just get the timing boost. It's pretty useful, right? I mean, you can go for a swing path boost if you're really struggling with swing path. But the only one that's different is putter. I go for level 2. Putt weight, I think, is better than putt path, because it seems that if you shank a putt, it doesn't get affected as much as if you shanked a regular shot. Anyways, give me 1 second while I pause and I will fill out the tree, and we'll talk about a little bit about why I made certain decisions and what is good investments in the tree in general. All right, and we are back. As you can see, I've filled out quite a lot of the tree, and let's get started. As I said earlier, we want 3 in the 3 wood, or the wood, and 1 in driver. Then we move on, as I showed. We put 3 points here, and 1 point into rangefinder, since I didn't like any of the other skills. Then I ended up putting another point into it because I only like this Pathfinder one, putt weight, pretty easy to activate. I don't like the other activations. For example, bump and run gives us a roll boost. That means your chips out of the heavy rough are going to roll out even more In 2K23, shots out of the rough really have a spin disadvantage. They do not stop. You don't want the greens going faster, so avoid anything with a roll bonus, especially out of the rough. This one is so hard to activate, and you don't use iron splashes that often that I don't really want this. I don't use hybrids, and I don't bogey that much, so I don't want to use that, and it'll be easy to deactivate, so I didn't want to invest into that. So we just went back here. I don't like the other ones too. The one you could think about is this cut it close, but again, if you are getting black tempos, that's the only way this can activate. So it's kind of hard to activate this. I will never activate it unless I'm having an exceedingly bad round. Next, I go back into putting. Again, an easy one to activate. And this too breezy, I put 1 point in it at the time. I put in another point later. We'll talk about that in a bit. But you do need to pay attention to this one very much. It is easy to activate. It will deactivate fairly easily, but it's like not too hard to bring it back if you need to. This is the flight boost. Remember what I said about flight earlier. The wind will play differently. You need to pay attention to see if this is active, if you are taking a normal shot from the fairway. If you have too breezy active, the wind will play less. And all of a sudden, you might go 5 yards longer than you expected. It also adds distance, so it can mess with your gappings a little bit. Don't like the other ones again. For example, this only affects shots with the 3-wood, and you might only do that 2 or 3 times around, maybe, and you might only be like laying up or a long par 3, and you probably are only going to see 1 long par 3. So it's kind of difficult to go for this off the tee. And this one off the deck, you only will use driver off the deck once, maybe twice around. So just depends if you feel like you want to use a lie range boost. It's a useful stat to have. This isn't the worst one to activate, so it's up to you. Finally, we have the fun ones. This one in particular is like the first time you'll notice a skill having a major effect. Aerodynamics, very, very good skill. Flight boost on the driver is almost always a benefit. It's easy to activate as a skill, as you can see. It just activates when you hit into a headwind. And a 5-mile-per-hour headwind for level 3 is really easy to activate. So even when it deactivates, you're likely going to activate it the next time you're off the tee. And it only deactivates if you hit 2 greens in regulation in a row. So again, harder to deactivate, easy to activate, and gives you straight up 5 bonus yards. Yes, that's right. 5 yards on the driver off the tee. Next, if you use hybrids, this is extremely good. Back on track, it gets a lie range boost from the heavy rough. This makes it play more like an iron out of the heavy rough if this is active. However, it is difficult to activate, like I said before. Have a poor swing timing, not always the easiest to activate. So I ended up went back, just put it in too breezy. And finally, we get to the second to last tee. Another really cool positive benefit. Power boost off the tee. Very easy to activate again. And you're just going to get a bonus. I think it's +6 power, +6 distance. That's quite good. So, again, big benefit to having this in your skills. And finally, we just take 3 points in every type of club we have, except the putter, because I want putt weight over putt path. You can take putt path, but like I said, shanking the ball unless you're completely outside of the gray doesn't have a big impact on your putts compared to regular swing planes. Anyways, now that we've filled out the tree, choose your own adventure. Decide what you like in your bag. This is where everybody can have different opinions. You might put in the 3rd point into too breezy. You might have hybrids in your bag, so now you're going to put hybrid points in normal power boosts from the bunker. That's pretty good. As well as flight boosts from the heavy rough. That's good too. Oh, look, spin boosts from the fairway. Pretty positive, mostly. You do have to probably test to see how much the wind plays when it's activated, but it's still pretty good. Survivor. Normal shots receive a timing boost from the heavy rough. Not bad, but again, you have to activate it when you score a bogey. So, not the best, right? Some of these are... The negatives aren't that great. It's mostly about the positive trees. And so there you go. Thank you everybody for watching the video. Hopefully this was all the information you can ask for, and you could start getting to work on making the skills yours. Expect more tutorial videos to come out soon, including calibration and tempo on PS5 and PS4 versions of the game. Anyways, finally, click the bell, subscribe, like, leave a comment below. Tell me, what kind of tutorials do you want to see? What kind of videos in general do you want me to see? You can expect tutorials here, TGC rounds, hopefully some build guides, and perhaps maybe TGC preview rounds for the week ahead. Anyways, I hope you enjoy. Good luck in all of your rounds. This is Karacakes, the Golf Elf, wishing you a happy 2K23 release, and I hope you enjoy the game as much as I have. Take care. Love you guys. Mean it. Mwah.